Hi, so for this video, I'm going to be talking about Danny and their role within DNA, their function, but also how you might use other design skills or performance skills when acting, directing, and designing for DNA. Now, I actually have my first note already on the board. So under function, why is Danny in the play? Well, he is comedy. He is providing something to laugh at. His comments are, when you take a step back, really selfish and cruel. I'd argue he's the most selfish character in the whole play. But when he says them, like, you need 3 references for dental college, how am I going to get into dental college? Because it's such a surprise for the audience when they're talking about death and being screwed and all of that. To have this outburst about something so random, it makes the audience laugh, but then maybe second guess that reason why they're laughing. You've got to remember this play is a dark comedy, and Danny is one of the few characters that has those punchlines kind of written into their role. Now, another thing to consider with Danny is the fact that he is like the middle of the pecking order. He's not at the top, he's not at the bottom. He has like arguments with people like Kathy, like he's saying, oh, shut up, Kathy. But then John Tate can very much easily pick on him, talking about which side they're on and stuff like that. So he's very like middle of the road. Now, an important thing to remember about Danny is yes, he's there at the beginning. So he's trustworthy enough for that. And yes, he's there, when they're trying to find Brian in Act 2. He is not in the rest of the play. A common misconception is that Danny is in Act 3. He's not. Now, we know from Richard's monologue at the end of the play, at the end of Act 4, that he is doing work experience at a dental college. So he leaves the situation, he leaves the group. He's a bit like John in that way, who leaves after the end of Act 1, and Leo leaves at the end of Act 3. So John leaves Act 1, then you've got Leo that leaves Act 3, Danny leaves at the end of Act 2. Okay, so the interesting thing, however, as Richard tells us, is he hates his work experience after being that selfish, talking about dentistry so much and, nothing about the fact that he's guilty in being part of a manslaughter or murder, depending on your interpretation. Not that he's killed someone, about him being a dentist. And then he hates it. The guilt catches up with him. And he therefore hates. Hates it. Now, there's a really interesting line that Richard says, that when the patients open their mouths, he feels like he's going to fall in. Now, there's some imagery there. The fact that he, when he looks into the patient's mouths, feels like he's going to fall down this never-ending hole, like Adam fell down the mine shaft. So that's what I'm saying about that guilt circling back around to him. Now, he has, for Phil's master plan, quite a vital role. He's part of the team that breaks into Adam's house. He also makes the footprints with Lou. So he is committing multiple crimes. He breaks in and he makes fake evidence. He does the footprints. Okay, so he is part of this group. He's protective of this group, but he's not like Phil that says things like, what's more important, one person or everyone? He's part of the group, but for himself and for his own selfish interests. So he can be a dentist, which he hates by the end. That is karma in that way. Goes around, comes around, if you don't know that saying. So, Act 1, Act 2, not in the rest of the play, but we learn about him at the end of Act 4. So let's talk about his performance skills then. So vocally, physically, and stage space, that's what we're considering. We've got to make sure that he is funny. So this means that the timings are key for that punchline. Hi, you're right.
Sorry.
I'm just recording a video. Yeah, absolutely. So we've got to make sure that the timing is right for the punchlines. And also, you need therefore to exaggerate what is going on. So, in order to make it funny, you're exaggerating, maybe vocally by, thank you, by leaving little pauses there. You can also exaggerate with this big, loud, major movement of standing up, of being really like rigid. I think he would have very like straight back, stiff posture, frantic movements to show that he is stressing, but he is also quite prim and proper and is thinking about all the stuff that's going on, you know, in that selfish way of, I need to do this, I'm going to do this, what do I need to do to basically be able to do these things? So that exaggeration could be the size of the movements. So let's talk about here, we were saying about the kind of straight act, that kind of frantic. Vocally, that means that the pitch could be high, that it's fast paced. Physically then, in terms of stage space, you can play around with pacing. You can play around with the idea of him being far apart from Kathy. You could also play around with the idea of him being still and focused so that you have this contrast when he has these big explosions. Maybe something like a chair that he like bursts out from. Okay, so that's some ideas there for performance skills for Danny. If we're talking about design skills, I firstly want to mention props and stage furniture. When we've done past productions, we've had Danny with a science revision guide. So even if he's in this like group setting, there's that little nod to that he's actually really hardworking and he's trying to get the grades. He's talking about A levels and things like that. So you could show that through that use of a revision guide. I think what's also really interesting is he's therefore reminding us as an audience, these are kids, these are young kids. He's one of the few characters that helps us age these kids at around 16 years old, because of him saying things like A levels are part of the plan, dental college is part of the plan. So, a revision guide. Also, you could show him as being kind of this middle of the pack, doing something like smoking. So maybe other characters are handing out cigarettes, especially when the group is talking about what happened to Adam. You can see that he's maybe having this as a coping mechanism. So maybe something like a drink or a smoke could show those risky behaviours, therefore showing the kind of themes of the play. If we're talking about staging, it's very similar to what we were saying about his use of stage space. I would have him walk on from the side that you're orientating as the kind of street side into the wood scene. But I would also consider having him to a side, whether that's upstage, downstage, stage left, stage right, it's up to you and your vision, but have him off to the side. Because he's this middle of the pecking order, you can show that through him being just out of the way a little bit. You could also have it that he starts centre stage and moves out of the way when other more senior characters arrive. So for example, start centre stage with John, Lou, at the very start, and when Richard and Kathy walk in, they might pick up his chair and move to one side so that Richard and Kathy can talk about what's happened. Brian's also there, but Brian's just crying, he's probably on the floor somewhere, let's be honest. So in terms of set then, this is probably where you need to consider what level you want him on. In previous productions that we've done at school, we've had him kind of on this camping chair. You could also look at having like a block if you're going more abstract. You could just have him stood to the side. But I think a level is a good way of showing that he's in the middle. He's not stood up, he's not on the floor, he's just in the middle. Okay? I think a camping chair is a really good idea because it kind of shows this like abandoned furniture, or that maybe that, you know, they've nicked this chair from somewhere, from their parents' house, who knows. But you can kind of show that outdoors feel by having something like a piece of camping furniture. If we're talking Sound of Music, very similar to other characters, you might have him kind of use his prop as a bit of a sound effect. Like maybe he fans himself with a revision guide at one point to calm himself down. But he's kind of maybe making that diegetic sound effect. In terms of him having like a personal backing track when he's talking, I don't think he needs that. But just an idea that he might have him punctuate maybe one of his jokes, like A-levels are part of the plan, dental college is part of the plan, dead people are not part of the plan. Use of breath, fanning himself. We could actually add breath down here when we're talking about exaggerating. Remember, that is a performance skill that covers both here, because that can help with the exaggeration of stuff going on as well. Proximity furniture, Sound of Music we have covered. Let's talk about lighting. I don't know why I'm full naming lighting, but there we go. I don't think there's an awful lot to say with Danny about lighting. You could have him, if you're having this revision guide, I don't know why, I can just imagine him having this little bit of like a comedy moment with a torch, like trying to read his revision guide in the woods. I don't know, you could have that. Or similar to what we were saying about Kathy, maybe he's one of the characters that is on his phone to kind of show again that age of the character, but also that reckless behaviour. Now, if we're talking about costume, I think he is going to be super smart. He's going to be neat. His hair is going to be neat with a gel in it to show that he is serious. Like his tie will be done. He might have full school uniform. Like he might not wear trainers on his feet. He might not wear jeans. He might wear trousers and shoes to show that he has this kind of senior knowledge in a way, and that he's got these big aspirations. And you can show that through his uniform. Whereas everybody else might have that little personal item, like a jacket or something. Have him in like the school jumper, like this picture kind of shows. You could have him in something like a body warmer. If you wanted him to still have that like piece of clothing that alludes to winter or the setting of them being outside. But I think having the condition of it really prim and proper will really benefit your designs with Danny. I think that is it. I think if I've missed anything. I think that's quite a good covering there. Hopefully this video has helped. Sorry about the interruption earlier. Hopefully you just skipped over that a little bit. But here you go. Best of luck with your revision. Please watch all of the other videos in the character series. Hopefully this will help you with some questions, particularly with the 12 mark where it's talking about the character art, and also the other questions here if Danny comes up. Danny's only been on one past paper before, as at time of recording, this is 2026. So he's probably going to come up at some point this year, maybe next year, but just some food for thought. Anyway, thank you so much. Bye.